Let's try that again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it's time to strategize. Um, so I hope everybody's been doing well. We have some nominal improvements on the stuff that we've been working on. And the thing about these improvements are they're not like, oh, wow, but they are significant improvements, and I think you'll see this stuff getting better now. As everybody knows, we're moving this thing along at the fastest pace I can possibly push this cart. But the good news is that that every time we ratchet up a level in terms of just capabilities, I don't have to relearn it unless I leave it alone for another year or something like that. So we got just a couple little things to show you, I think. And I guess we're about as many here as we're going to get. So let's go ahead and just do that now. Um, so the we saw the interview last time, and the main thing I was concentrating on really was improving the quality of the facial animation. Everything you're about to see is the exact same actual motion capture take, but I made some improvements to the lighting, and I made some improvements to the calibration. So even though these things, you're going to see some splits, some side by side. Thank you very much for the kind words there, Paul. You're going to see a couple of side by side comparisons. It's the exact same motion capture sequence with different lighting and a better calibration. So there's not so much of the bug eye stuff, and it looks pretty good. I redid the interviewer. I got her looking better. I'm not done with her yet, but I think there's a significant improvement there too. So since we have stuff to show, why don't we just kind of just jump right in there? So I think I set this up with its own audio. So here we go. Ready? All right, here we go. All right. First thing we're going to see is a combination that I call two Dougs, and the first Doug on the left will be the way you saw it last time with the studio lighting. The Doug on the right will have new lighting, and he'll have new calibration, but the new calibration isn't quite there yet. So here we go. Lighting's much better, however.
Yes, sir, Major Bob. Uh,
So the main thing about the new lighting, especially, is
well,
the
thank
eyes.
you, Bob.
When the eyes
Hi.
catch the light, like on that angle there, it's
How are
just
you?
enormously more realistic.
I
No
am
changes on the
spectacular.
face, no
Thanks for
changes on the
asking.
mesh on the face. It's all the same face. It's a face and mesh. It's all of
Well,
it.
what
So
would you like to know?
let's see what we're going to do from there. Now this one's obvious, a pretty big change between the two of
Well,
them.
I can do
The
that.
next one's actually much more subtle and much
Douglas
harder to
Elliott
spot.
Davenport, Lieutenant
So
Commander in the United States Navy, and my
I'm going to
tactical
probably have to
call
record
sign
that.
is
Tap says the laugh is
Sparks.
not quite there. Yeah, there's something strange about his mouth that
You know,
happens
if you
with
guys
that.
want to finish for me here, I've got an ice cold
But
Hams waiting
it's a
for me in
big
the
improvement.
fridge.
A lot more realistic looking on the right, I think.
Honestly, it's like
So
living among jackals up here sometimes.
hang on, jackals.
Jackals.
Okay, so I thought that was much better. This time on the left, the frame that used to be on the right is now going to be on the left. The frame on the right will be with improved calibration with the teeth. It's a subtle difference, but it's there. It's real subtle, but here you go. Old one on the left, new one on the right. Same motion capture take, different calibration on the teeth.
Yes, sir, Major Bob. Uh, well, thank you, Bob. Hi. How are you? I am spectacular. Thanks for asking. Well, what would you like to
When he has
know?
a tongue, says Iroteki. Yes. Amazing.
Well, I can do that.
What's
Douglas
strange too
Elliot
is the one on the right,
Davenport,
which is better,
Lieutenant
is where I
Commander in the
turn
United States
off
Navy, and
the
my
tooth
tactical call
calibration.
sign
The other
is
one, I calibrated the
Sparks.
teeth very carefully, and it doesn't work. I turned it
If
off.
you guys want to
Just said,
finish for me
forget it.
here, I've
Let
got
it
an
do it
ice
for
cold
it,
hams waiting for me in the fridge.
and it's not showing so many lower teeth there.
Honestly,
So
it's like living among jackals up here sometimes. Jackals.
okay, so this may be a little bit redundant, but I just wanted to do it anyway. So here's basically Doug's entire segment, the two takes, and I just wanted to see how he looked with the good calibration. So that's what this is here. So let's take a look at this. Oh, there's something else to by the way. The
Yes, sir,
I'm gonna have to
Major
be careful about
Bob.
how I redo that later. He's I can turn his head much more. I didn't want him to move slightly to the side. If I move him more of a head
Well,
turn,
thank
we
you,
lose the
Bob.
calibration. So I'll be able to move his
Hi.
head more towards Mace and
How are
so on.
you? I am
I think I might have
spectacular.
fixed the
Thanks for
lazy eye in
asking.
the interviewer. We'll see.
Well, what would you like to know? Well, I can do that. Douglas Elliot Davenport, Lieutenant Commander in the United States Navy, and my tactical call sign is Sparks. If you guys want to finish for me here, I've got an ice cold hams waiting for me in the fridge. Honestly, it's like living among jackals up here sometimes. Jackals. We're not on national television, Grimms. There's no such thing as national television anymore. We're on the goddamn internet. Well, in situations that don't require an awful lot of skill, yes, man, that's true. Well, in a case like that, then I would have to revert to being a naval aviator. Hell yes, there's a difference. A pilot. Hell yes, there's a difference. A pilot has to stop a highly streamlined supersonic aircraft within, let's say, 8,000 feet of runway. A naval aviator, on the other hand, has to do it at about 150 feet, which means between the 50-yard line and the end zone. Now, that's less than 2% of the available runway that old ham hands over there needs. So, yeah. Now that's less than 2% of the available runway that old ham hands over there needs if he's really having a good day and he's right on the ball. So let me see here. That's 8,000 feet versus 150 feet. And it means if my math is correct, and my math is correct, then a naval aviator would be 53.33333 times better at flying an aircraft than, say, your typical Hun driving cheer force puke. Oh man. Oh man. Well played, sir. Hmm.
Well, thank you very much for that, Smash O Mash. Looks entirely unnatural and phony. That's why I'm working so hard. Okay, so here's a little bit of the original narration. I'm doing this just to show you the original narrator, interviewer, and her voice because I changed both of those.
Well, today we're very proud and pleased to have a chance to speak with the four men that astonished the entire world just a few weeks ago with the official confirmation of Project Horizon and everything that that entails. Gentlemen, you may not be fully aware of this, but right now you are likely the four most talked about men in the world, and yet we know nothing about you. Now, we know you're pressed for time, so let's just jump right into it. Major Mattingly, I understand you're in command up there. Can you...
Okay, so that's the old voice. That's the old head. I'm going to have to redo that entire interview take because there's just a lot of problems with the read. It's the same read, however, you should see a significant improvement here. So this is her. These are her lines all the way through. On the left will be the old one. On the right will be the new one. Yeah, she's definitely overexposed on the right. I didn't have time to fix that before we roll. But she's got makeup on. I think she probably needs more eye makeup, more eyeshadow or something on the right side because she's a little overexposed. But the skin on the left side's got more detail, but you never see that on TV. There is no audio, is there?
Well, I'm very well, thank you for asking. And you? So, what can you tell us
They need to
about
darken up her
yourself, though?
eyebrows too. Was there no audio on that whole thing?
Okay, well, why don't you start with the basics then?
That was stupid of me. But yeah, the bug eye situation's much better.
So, Doug, I
The voice is
understand that you're a
deeper.
pilot.
I don't know why this one would have a different channel.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry, I don't
it
understand.
does.
What if you have to do something that does require a lot of skill? There's a difference? Well, that escalated quickly.
Actually, green eyes
Anyway,
on
ladies
the
and gentlemen, there is your exclusive first interview with Project Horizon's
Yeah, so the one on the
Major
right's wearing
Mace
makeup. That
Mattingly
takes a lot of the
and the
skin
last
tones
men
out.
on the moon. Oh.
I just let a little bit of this roll.
Well, today
but I'm
we're
not gonna roll the
very
whole thing again.
proud and pleased to have a chance
So
to
she needs
speak
a little
with
more
the
makeup
four
actually to
men
make it clear
that
that she's
astonished
wearing
the
makeup because the one on
entire
the left
world just a few
I
weeks
thinned her
ago
face
with the
out. I made her
official
older.
confirmation of Project Horizon
her lips
and
and her
everything
mouth
that
smaller.
entails.
I deepened her
Gentlemen, you
voice.
may not be fully aware of this, but
And
right now
her
you are
eyebrows are
likely
too
the
light.
four
You're right.
most
She needs
talked
more
about
eyeshadow
men
or
in the
something.
world, and yet
And she's a little
we know
overexposed.
nothing about
But
you.
in any event,
Now, we
it's
know you're
definitely
pressed
better.
for time, so let's just jump right into it.
So, all right,
Major
here we go.
Mattingly, I
Finally,
understand you're in
this
command
one,
up there. Can
and,
you tell?
This is in 4K up on the website. This is just a fly into the base. I just did a little work on it, and I set the thing at the south pole of the moon, so sun angle's very low. There's a little bit of Earth light giving it a little bit of fill, so you can get a look at this. It looks like a toy, but at the same time, it looks believable. It's right where I want it in terms of retro. All right, here we go. If you look inside, you'll see the astronauts moving in the windows and in the background and stuff. So that's about it. We're making some real progress there, and obviously, like I said, it's all a ratchet. So the more I don't have to make those same mistakes twice. And once I get a really great calibration take, then all that stuff is the same. I don't have to go back and redo the voice for the guys. I just re-render them with a better calibration. So a lot of their little idiosyncrasies should go away. And right now, just to finish this up, this thing's just a proof of concept test, this little interview thing. I wanted to put him in this lighting studio because I wanted to see how good I could get the metahumans, but then obviously these guys wouldn't be in a photo studio, and I thought maybe they got a little TV studio on the moon. I didn't buy that either. So what I'm doing now is I'm building the inside of the command center on the space station. That's the top of the building right out in front. And the cool thing about that is I've got some really excellent 3D assets. I've got I'm going to have a computer room, and the computer room is a computer room. It's just an old mainframe, like from 1967 or something, 66. It's got just rows and rows and rows of the reel-to-reel things. It's got like these huge vertical hard drives. They're probably a megabyte each, and that looks great. I've got a very, very cool looking engineering console for Doug and his reactor. It looks just a bunch of, painted lines with lights. It looks really kind of cool and primitive. The getting that is going to be it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up having the guys sitting in on chairs in the front of the control room. Moon will be behind them. Earth will be up there over the horizon, and they'll be sitting there. I don't know whether I'm kind of inclined to put them into jumpsuits rather than their spacesuits. But I definitely am going to change them out of the gray pants and stuff. That just comes with metahumans, and that's metahuman clothing is just really sad in terms of what it comes with. So I think I'll do that. And the nice thing about that too is that, and it's not a lot to build because I've already got the shape of the room. I'm just going to put some of these old-fashioned banks of terminals in there, figure out how to light the thing, put them in front of the window. And the cool thing about that is I can do a reversal, and these guys can be, so we can see what they're seeing, and they're watching on a TV set like this big, so she's coming through a 66 Motorola Quasar color TV, so that image will be really degraded on that side of it. Other than that, I think it's actually looking pretty cool. And again, the thing is, once I get it there, I don't have to go backwards. So I'm pretty pleased about all of that. And the backstory continues to come too, which is kind of fun. So that's great. I did some calculations just for the fun of it. I had spent a lot of time working on a jetpack, which I bought the asset for the jetpack. I don't know, it's $40 or something, and I did one or two shots with guys flying around on the jetpack. And then I found out that Unreal Engine has a jetpack and animations and all the rest of it, so it's just much better. It was like $12 or something. So they're going to be. I figured, what the hell? If I was going someplace on the moon and I didn't want to take the big lander, how would I go? Well, you could take the space bubble, which I'd like a lot, because this is all about, the idea that Major Matt Mason stole the ideas for the toys from the stuff was actually on the moon in a big data leak. But jetpacks are jetpacks. By the way, just as a quick aside, today I saw for the first time ever a video clip of jetpack racing. 3 guys with the backpacks and the arm, controllers, the jets at the end of the arms, were racing in jetpacks. I thought, well, we're finally catching up. Anyway, they got the old style jetpacks with the big silver rocket nozzles that come down. And I thought, okay, I just started thinking, how far could you go on a jetpack with a tank of fuel? Because some of these missions, they might have to go a couple hundred miles or something. And that led to the question of, okay, well, how fast do you have to go to get into orbit just above the lunar surface? Because I figured, man, if there's one thing that Doug is interested in, that is getting into lunar orbit with a jetpack, and who could blame him? I mean, that's just about it. So I just came up with some numbers here. In order to reach lunar orbital velocity at the surface, he would need to be going 3,264 knots in a jetpack, which comes out to 5,500 feet per second, or about 3,750 miles per hour. And I thought, wow, man, I don't know. He's really moving a mile a second. Then I realized, okay, so, they got some benefits. First of all, there's no atmospheric drag. Secondly, gravity is 1/6 of what it is. My main concern really was, since you control a jetpack by shifting your weight, could he angle forward enough to get the jets going that much forward? And I just didn't see any way he could. You'd have to almost be completely, face down with the rocket going right behind you. So these are the kind of things I think about when I got time driving home. So I thought, okay, probably what he'll do is he'll get as much forward velocity going as he can. Just really get as much forward velocity as he can. And as he continues on, he's gonna come down because he doesn't have orbital velocity. And he goes, some 30, 40, 50 miles or something. And then he's descending. So then he just fires it up again, gives it another shallow angle climb, brings it back up to, a mile above the surface. He keeps his forward velocity. So it's a series of like these 20 or 30 mile kind of hilly kind of boosts and stuff. But, you can't go to the moon in 1966 without a jetpack, or I should say a rocket pack in this case. So that was cool. I guess that's about it. So just, moving along and trying to keep everything else moving along as well. The Frank Luke screenplay is coming along, and all the other stuff too. So, yeah. Ooh, I like that. Thumper, the sweaty guy, says, slingshots or trebuchets that fling you into orbit and you use the jetpack to decelerate. I just love that idea. Like a giant trebuchet. That's the kind of thing that Grimm would just want to build. I just think it'd be fun. And you could build on a real big scale on the moon. This is the thing about these guys. I've talked about this, I think, at least once. But these guys could be watching TV the whole time or playing video games. They refuse to do it because they know it's going to make them soft. So they go out and they build things. And Steve's working on his car, and these other guys. Doug's constantly working on the reactor and engineering. He's got to essentially responsible for the maintenance of the entire structure, which was designed to hold 20 people. And 16 of them went back home expecting to be resupplied because they had to cut the budget just for a year or two. Left a skeleton crew up there back in 1973, 74, and they never came back. So these 4 guys have got the run of the place, but they're constantly doing things like this, surfing down mountains and then and playing football on the surface of the moon, mostly watching TV because they got to get outside. So, all of that. But, geez, a giant trebuchet, that just seemed like something fun to build. The thought occurs to me now. Is obviously a trebuchet is obviously gravity powered, so you've got this gigantic weight on one side and a long arm on the other, and throws this thing. The 1/6 Newton of gravity will help you with the projectile, but it also hurts you when it comes down to pulling the thing down. So maybe what he'll do is maybe he'll just have like some kind of a electromagnet or something, and just kind of just bring it on down. Dave Big Booty says, "Hey Bill, shuttle mission STS-51C in January '85 remains classified. Did they send some emergency supplies to these guys?" All those classified missions, all the Defense Department missions in the shuttle program, and a lot of the launches too, are all designed to restock the Project Horizon base. Yeah. It's coming along. It's time to do the trailer after this. So yeah, Eric, I saw it the first 9 times. Thank you. But just the idea of like a trebuchet was like, you can't put something into orbit with a trebuchet because you can't circularize the orbit. But it would be an interesting challenge to see if you could align this thing just perfectly so that you could hurl something around the moon and it would come back and land within a few, half a mile of where you launched it from. That'd be kind of thing that Steve would really like, launch this thing, you wait 2 hours or whatever, waiting for this thing to come back. Oh, it went too long, we didn't go close enough, we never saw it. Now it's, it's 15 miles downrange over there. Have to angle the thing, just got a little tiny little kind of a vernier kind of thing, and just kind of crank the angles. What is this guy doing? He's out working on his trebuchet. What do you think he's doing? What else is there to do? And I see, this is why I love doing this show, because it gets so many cool ideas, and they just give me ideas about doing all that other stuff. Pumpkin chunkin, yeah, like a giant pumpkin gun, except without air pressure. He's just going to build one because he just thought they were cool. JB Coulter says old school jetpacks use slightly vectored thrust to move a vertical body. If you're traveling more than a few miles per hour, deceleration thrust must be vectored at a higher angle, would blow your feet off. Exactly. Except that on the older jetpacks, the tubes come out past the guy's shoulders and down specifically so they don't come straight off your back and onto your feet. They're all weight shifters, though. They're all just like a hang glider. You just shift your center of mass, and that tilts you, and it tilts the thrust vector and all the rest of it. But I just didn't want him, just flying on the jetpack for 5 hours, because I don't think I have the fuel for that, because that would be ridiculous. But this over the course of every 15 or 20 minutes be kind of fun. Dave Big Booty says, first time I was aware of trebuchets was when R. Lee Ermey had one built to fling watermelons. I remember that episode. And by the way, I realize I have to pull the NASA vectors off of those guys' suits, because they're not NASA, they're Project Horizon, so I've got a pretty decent logo idea for that. NCP Tome says, easier to use a mass driver. Yes, but we're not talking about easy. We're talking about hard. We're talking about something that's fun to build and something that is whimsical. That's the word I'm looking for. Whimsical. Yeah. I've got an idea. What are you doing there, Grims? I'm going outside to work on my trebuchet. Well, you have a great time out there, pal. It's just cool. They've got time on their hands. They're mechanically minded. They're very smart guys. They can do the math. What are you going to do now? Well, we're trying to figure out a way to throw a pumpkin around the moon, basically. We're just going to throw it around the moon, all the way around it. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And it gives Grimm something to do, something to build with his hands, because he's one of those guys. Biggest problem was projectile melting or burning on the way up. I imagine that's for the Earth mass driver, but on the moon, we don't have to worry about that at all. So anyway, I thought that was kind of fun. Let's march on to our questions, shall we? We're getting ourselves into dangerous habits here. I think this might be the third time in a row we just went to questions and got through them. So let's see here. Bam, 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 bam. They want to be sedated. Did I see recently? What the heck was it? There was a discussion about what they could be launching. First thought I had was they could just launch their garbage. Launch their they could launch their garbage from the south pole of the moon, just barely visible on the limb. They could launch their garbage into the Sea of Moscow, which is it's the only real area of the far side that has a little bit of a lava flow, kind of like the enormous Maria on the near side. But Sea of Moscow is just one crater that's deep enough to filled up with lava. Most of the lava went to the Earth side. I guess it's because gravity pulled it there. But it's kind of funny if they just had their junk and they're just trebucheting it off. And where you're putting it? Yeah, we just thought we'd send it to the Sea of Moscow. So, with our compliments. It's fun. It's a fun idea. Most everything's going to be all the biological stuff will be recycled. I've given that a little thought too. It's just kind of fun. Yeah, you just kind of have it hauled away. Wait, the Rough Ryan says launch your old woke Bud Light cans. When did Bud Light start as a brand? Anybody? It's not the hive mind will tell me. All right, as I'm looking up the questions here. Launch their garbage to an re-entry course to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. Yes, that would be definitely possible, but then the moon is essentially just a giant sterile barren rock. You just launch it into the Sea of Moscow, just with their compliments. Thanks very much. Have a great day. And now I can see this is how ideas just really run with me. Really, really run with me. 82, yeah. Dave Big Booty says we know when Bud Light ended as a brand. See, this is where I'm really at my best. It's like somebody mentions a trebuchet, and now I'm thinking, launching the garbage into the Sea of Moscow and the trebuchet, and then there becomes, what if there's like a trebuchet war with the Soviets? It's not a serious war, because if it was a serious war, they'd be using serious weapons, but it's kind of like almost like what do they call that, the Flower Warriors or something, where, like the Haka, everybody comes out and just kind of demonstrates how tough they are. Yeah, we're just gonna, put a big old container of garbage into somebody's pressurized container. That could end up badly, but still, it's kind of fun. All right, here we go. You turtable, you bet your sweet ass I am, Eric. Okay, here's the JFK space question. Don't worry, you didn't cover this before. Well, that's be a first for everything, I guess. How devoted do you think Kennedy would have been to space post-Apollo? Was he simply about landing on the moon in and of itself as the premier American challenge of our time, or did he have a vision of sorts for beyond that point? Funny you mentioned that. I discovered something online not too long ago on YouTube, and it was a little disappointing. That's a great line, too. Artiki says, yeah, we knew civilization was doomed when they came out with light beer. There's a conversation a phone conversation between John Kennedy and James Webb. And Kennedy was essentially saying, look, we just got to get on the moon, okay? We just have to get on the moon. We have to do it because the Soviets got there. into space first, and they got the first satellite, they got the first astronaut. We're losing prestige around the world. I just want to get on the moon now. And Webb is saying, well, Mr. President, that's one of many things that NASA can be doing at the same time. NASA, and Kennedy says, no, 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 no. This isn't about space or exploration. It's about politics. I don't care about space exploration. I think he said that verbatim. I think he said it verbatim. I really don't care about space exploration. I care about the political leverage. So that's very funny. That's Arthur C. Clarke. I just have to get to this real quick. It's at DGAX 65 says Arthur C. Clarke did a short story about the aftermath of a war on the moon. They'd used regular firearms, and the fired rounds were in orbit and would rain down on them even after the war was over. That's just class. Yeah. Let's see where we did. So Kennedy. So the answer to your question, I think, is no. I don't think he was a space guy. I was really quite surprised and a little disappointed to see that, but it doesn't surprise me. That was in line with somebody mentioned on the show a couple, 3-4 weeks ago that that the United States was prepared to fight a war for 100 years, a nuclear war for 100 years, and so they had to, once that war starts, there's not going to be any spare parts coming off the line. So I had to buy all these spare parts. You can hide a lot of the stuff for Project Horizon there, but it just goes to show you how serious, this was. This wasn't a joke. In the 60s or the 70s or 80s, got to be a little less. No, actually, it's hard to take the Soviet Union real seriously after. Brezhnev or during Brezhnev, but that's all in hindsight. We all thought we were going to get fried anyway, so there you go. Okay, let's see. There's Eric Blake again. I want to make sure I get something from everybody. Wait, quite a few this time. All right, so if I have time, Eric, I will come back to you for your second question. Hey, here's our friend G.K. Masterson. What do you know? Not sure if I'll still be here when the stream goes up. I got assigned my truck Friday, and I'm just waiting to hear back from dispatch about getting a load. It's brand new, pretty, and I even got the priest from my church to come and bless it. Wow, that's kind of cool. My question for you is, have you considered joining forces with other groups like Angel Studios who are setting up ways to produce films and shows that bypass the Hollywood gatekeepers? Yes, I am. Also doing things like classes in how to plan a multi-episode series, how to plan your arcs, how to write episodically, etc. Could do a lot to help more people get into culture creation, since a lot of creative writing classes and workshops are pretty heavy on wokeism. Are these things you've put any consideration into? I know that once I get used to trucking, I'm planning to start doing videos and online workshops on novel writing and episodic narrative writing. Thanks, GK. P.S. Picture of my truck attached. More are up on the Discord server in general. Okay. We will display this. I'm going to assume that this is for public consumption, although I don't know if I can get this thing down. I'll just do a grab of it again. Because this is, this is a big deal. GK's been working on this for a long time, and she's done so much for us over the years. So here comes the little screen grabby. Ka-chink. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here comes your fully blessed all-American 18-wheel hauling, looks like a cab over. Not that I know much about these things. Hey, look at that. That's a truck. That is definitely a truck. I would swear to it. Yes. Congratulations. GK, that's a fine looking rig, and I'm sure it'll take good care of you. So glad to hear that worked out for you. So that's great. Let's see. Here we go. Away you. And I have some plans along these lines too. In terms of the whole acting thing. I'm not going to get into it. My wife talked me out of talking about it, because she says if you talk about it, then you'll just kind of talk about it, just do it and deliver it. I said, well, sounds like you know me well, woman. I didn't say woman, of course. I said, dear. All right, let's see what we got. Congratulations on that, JK. Moving on, Chris Taylor. What do you think of the idea of using one of the Soviets' own space events as the distraction for Horizon, knowing that all their own resources would be occupied tracking their own first, so they're essentially distracting themselves? There could be some tension as to if the Soviets can pull off their launch with our boys rooting for them to succeed, because if not, then we couldn't launch either. Interesting. Your animations start out with a lot of problems, but they're improving very quickly with a very short time between iterations. You seem to be following the SpaceX learning curve of making a lot of mistakes early, fixing them, and moving on quickly to new mistakes so you can get them behind you and learn how to succeed regularly. Is that a deliberate mindset? It is now. Usually I just continue to make the mistakes, and I forget the learning part and the cycling part. But I've been posting a lot. I've got a lot of stuff that I can post. I mean, I've got thousands of videos on that are actually on the Stratosphere Studio YouTube page that I kept private. I've just mostly used them for references, including just scores of them on Dias for Dungeon. So I should just go through all that, list them and put them into the correct play groups. And just kind of do it from there. So, so this idea that I'm not going to tell you about is going to be something I'm going to be doing that's going to try and get us a lot closer to Silent America and eject. I think everybody's had an awful lot of politics and has had enough of this kind of, this constant screaming. I think more people really want I hope more people really want. It's not escapism by any means, kind of the opposite, but just sort of entertainment and storytelling, rather than just another commentary on another catastrophe of the day. So we'll see how that works out. But I think I'm going to get some help on that and have some interesting ideas. So we'll see. So anyway, back to your question here. I like that. I have to tell you, I'm. One of the only things really, really disappointed me quite a lot the last couple of weeks is about 3 weeks ago I sent an email to this guy. He's got a YouTube channel called Hayes Gray Art, and I said, hey, I don't know if you know who I am, but here I is. I've got this channel and I'm working on this project, and here's a link to the Apollo 11 What We Saw thing, and I was wondering if you're interested in doing a collaboration, because he does the best space animations, rocket animations, and he's got all of the experimental stuff. He's got Sea Dragon. He's got those 4 Saturn V's. He's just great, talented guy. Never heard back from him. And so I sent him another one today saying, okay, let me try that again. Do you work for hire, or do you lease your work? Because he's done some really, really great stuff, and I would prefer not to have to do it myself. But in any event, he had shown a lot of the potential stuff that NASA had, including the original design for the shuttle launch. The Air Force had a weird 3-part shuttle where it was like the orbital shuttle was in the middle, and then the 2 side boosters were shuttles, and the thing just peeled off and they landed, and all kinds of interesting designs. But some of these things are like mega heavy, huge things. And I just want to include all of that in the true history of Project Horizon, because they were constantly designing all this stuff. And the reason I bring that up in response to your question, Chris, is because he also did a couple of animations of, he did one of, the Soviets had a super booster too. They had the equivalent of our Nova rocket. They were working on the N1, which they launched 3 times, I think. Failed every time, although the first flight was by far the most successful. So the N1 blew up 3 times, and they 3 or 4, I think it was 3, and that was the end of their moon race. But they also had just this massive kind of huge equivalent to the Saturn V Nova relationship. He's got animations of that thing taking off, and he also has a very, very, very cool animation on the Soviets landing on the moon. It just looks really, really cool. He's got the Soyuz, and he's got that little LEM. There's a one-man LEM, and And I didn't know this, but they had the same basic kind of mission. It may have been a one-man mission, probably a two-man mission. I know it wasn't a three-man mission. The Soviet LEM had room for one man in it, but they didn't have the hatchway because that would be convenient. So when they got into lunar orbit, they depressurized the Soyuz. Guy gets out in a spacesuit, climbs a ladder, just basically climbs, gets in through the LEM through the front door because they don't have the hatch that the Apollo LEM had on the top. And then this guy just, goes down and lands on the moon. This thing's the size of a phone booth and, standing and just gutsy, really gutsy. I love seeing all this stuff. I love all of this stuff. And that got me, again, because this is just fun for me. This is like really, really fun for me. So I just start running with these ideas like we just did with the trebuchets. So I thought, how are you going to hide this whole space program and launches, and stuff. And talked a little bit about Sea Dragon. And for those of you not familiar, Sea Dragon's a rocket that you could put 17 Saturn V's inside of or something. It's just this it's essentially just an enormous empty tank, fuel tank, and you just tow it out to sea and you put 1 million pounds of payload on it, fill it full of fuel, and it just sits in the water, rights itself. You tow it out like a barge horizontally, fuel it at sea. The thing sits down. It's 95% of it's below the surface. You light this thing off. It's just one big stupid rocket, and the thing just takes 1 million pounds into orbit. It was just incredible launch thing. And it's real dramatic coming out of the ocean as well. So then I started thinking about things like, okay, so a Sea Dragon, hey, that's maybe fun for one launch or two, but how are you gonna kind of do all this stuff? You got everybody's attention down there on Cape Kennedy. So where are you going to launch these things from? And I thought, okay, ocean. I know. Okay, why don't we do it from Kwajalein or Eniwetok? And I thought, see, because those are two of the island chains, the Marshall Islands, I want to say, Marianas. That are still U.S. territories after the Pacific War, World War II. And they did the Bikini Atoll. They did an H-bomb test. They did, I think they did the A-bomb test, I want to say, at Eniwetok. Kwajalein is where we launch interceptors, and when we do missile tests, the missile warheads re-enter at Kwajalein, as I recall. And then I thought, okay, well, let's have a look. So this is how the demented mind works. So I'm thinking, well, I know about Kwajalein, I know about Eniwetok, and I know about Bikini Island. I certainly know about Guam and Saipan and Tinian. So what don't I know about? So I took a look at the Marshall Islands, and in addition to those famous atolls, there's like another 4 or 5. And I thought, okay, now we're talking. I forget the names of them. There's like 2 of them that are really close together, like 2 little ones. And that's what we'll do. Well, everybody's attention is up at Kwajalein or Bikini or whatever. We'll just go to like this much further remote, really tiny little atoll, and that's where we're going to do our launches from. Hooray! And then I thought, okay, as time goes on, however, those pesky Soviets, they don't just have little Sputnik going beep every now and then. Towards the end of the 60s, early 70s, you start to get Soviets with at least the basics of reconnaissance satellites. And these guys are thinking, I don't know, man. We gotta keep these missions going. We gotta haul a lot of stuff up there. We got a lot of building to do. It's a lot of manpower and stuff. So then I thought, how would they hide this thing on like one of these little atolls? And then I started thinking, because this is what takes me back to the Futurama display in 1964. These giant vistas. By 1980, we will have colonized the moon. By the mid-90s, underwater cities. Blah blah blah. I said, yeah, why not? Let's do that. We'll just have the base be underwater, not deep, just, 70, 80 feet below the surface, maybe 60. Water's clear out there. And so the guys would basically just be like a shack and maybe a little runway or something. And a lot of guys would go into the shack and they wouldn't come out. Little tiny little radio shack or something. And then every now and then 30 guys would come out of the radio shack and they'd get in a plane, they'd take off. And then I thought, I really like this a lot. So now I've got this secret underwater base where they're building many of the components for the secret moon base. And that got me thinking, this is where I just don't know. I don't know how I ended up with this kind of brain mutation. But I thought, okay, so I'm going to build big stuff underwater, right? Yeah. Okay, so how am I going to get this stuff up to the surface? What am I going to do with it? I thought, oh, okay, so you could build this thing in like a watertight thing, kind of like the Hughes submersible barge that they use for Operation Azorian with the Glomar Explorer to go get that Russian sub, which I talked about in my Cold War episode called Cloaks and Daggers. I think it was episode 9, my favorite by far. I love Project Azorian. And I thought, okay, so let's say it's like building a rocket engine below the surface of the water. You got a bunch of pressurized habs down there. No big deal. It's easier, much easier than the moon. You're not, as long as you're not going deep. You're at 60 feet. That's 2 atmospheres. It's not a big deal. So they're building this stuff down there, and then how do they get this thing up to the surface? I thought, well, they could maybe build it and then have this room kind of, I don't know, just kind of bubble or something, like a big plastic bubble. They just flood it, and then they open the doors, and the bubble pops up and stuff. And then I thought to myself, if you're building a rocket engine, let's say, because that's kind of the biggest, heaviest thing you'd be worried about down there, maybe. Seawater is deadly corrosive for this kind of stuff. But if you took a rocket engine and you were very careful about plugging up all the little piping connections, right? Just seal those things with wax or something. And you just put a couple flotation bags on it. You just flood the hangar, open the top, inflate the bags, up go the rocket engines. Yes, they're covered in salt water for 20 minutes, a half an hour. They haul these things onto the beach. They hose them down, put them inside this other thing, looks like a beat-up old hangar. This is just this giant blow dryer, just dries these things right off. You're not talking about electronics or anything. And you don't have to do any of this in the beginning. This is all backstory stuff, but I just thought, yeah, I'm really starting to like this idea. I'm not going to do anything like the underground, like the volcano that opens up or stuff, but building an underwater base is just cool. It's just another cool way to do it, and it's a cool way to hide the stuff. Well, how did you launch all these things? Well, we did it out at Kawanuki, or I mean, no offense to the people that might be living on Kawanuki, but yeah, we just have, we just took a bunch of stuff out there, and a couple of our supply ships for the Navy carrier strike groups were just kind of quietly diverted over there and dumped off the stuff that they need, and then they just sink it and they get out there and just start. Yeah, Sea Lab, exactly, because Sea Lab is almost as cool as the moon base is. And the nice thing about this too, and this is where I think the whole idea just takes off, frankly, or at least it's what it's based on, is I would use a real place, someplace that you could find on Wikipedia. I'd use photos of the stuff from space, and then just kind of like, yeah, there's a little spot right here. See this little structure here, and we knocked that down. That got knocked down in the 1990s, but over here was this little thing, and we basically built the components, took them out in the middle of the atoll, sunk them. And we sea launched everything. We just sea launched everything. Why not? Just sea launch it. The atoll actually helped suppress the sounds so the Soviets couldn't read the thing. I like it. There's another option too, and that is something along the lines of the Glomar Explorer, which is launching rockets from a ship. But there's something just cool about this base. And Coffee Shinato says, out conspiracy the theorists. Exactly. That's my entire point. I want to make them look silly. One of my favorite little things, these things just fly into my head, but one of my favorite ideas ever was that you would see this thing as Area 51, and then this flying saucer, the silver flying saucer, would be like hovering over the desert. It's dust coming out from the bottom of it. It's making this really cool sound. And it's just floating there, and you're thinking, oh my God. And then next thing you know, this guy walks into frame, and the thing's maybe, 10, 15 feet across, and it's got electric motors, and there's another guy back there. He's got the remote control thing, and can you make it go higher? Yeah, we go as high as you want. What about the sound? The sound of the motors, it's all electric. Can you do anything about that? Oh, yeah, hang on a second. Flicks the switch. Get out the old theremin, just makes these. And then they say, we're just going to fly this thing around the perimeter of Area 51. We're going to fly it outside. We're going to fly it over Edwards. We're just going to, just almost like we're going to roll the dice to see whether we're going to chuck this thing out there. And everything's going to point to Area 51. And there's nothing at Area 51. Everything we're working on is at Area 52, which is one better. which nobody's heard about. This constant sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not distraction. It's oh, come on. When a magician uses, he does. Misdirection. Thank you. I was looking for the D's. Misdirection. There you go. Thank you very much, misdirection. Yeah, just areas, or maybe it's area 68 or something. Who knows? I should make it area 66 because that way the Star Wars fans can have their execute order 66. Worst script ever written. So anyway, thank you, Chris. Yes, it took me a long time to remember how to use Unreal, and now, and somebody pointed out also in the comments while we were rolling it that you're rapidly reaching the point of diminishing returns here, Bill. Just get it out the door. So I got to just build the inside of this base, and then we're going to do the teaser trailer with these guys out on the moon. So there you go. There we go. All right, moving on. There's another Chris Taylor. I will come back to that if I get through the other ones, and I think it will. Here is Road Rider. Sorry, I haven't been up on the Monday Stratosphere Lunges, so if this question's covering old news, forgive me. Stop reading, begin to mock, etc. The idea of guys on the moons is so cool. I think so too, thank you. The question, do you have anything close to an entire segment, episode, pilot written? If so, would you share it with us, or is that just really bad form for a writer? Or is this just a bunch of random vignettes floating around in your noggin while you work on the visuals? Again, commence to flogging if this is super old news. It's not super old news. So I originally planned this just to do political commentary. I want the initial idea was crystal clear. It took me a while for it to gel, but once it did gel, I realized, no, I want guys looking at 2023 through the perspective of 1966. I want to be able to have an Apollo program view of the present day situation in America. That's what I really want. I want to be able to talk like steely-eyed missile man and just do that. And then I got the idea that, okay, so instead of me being the cranky voice, I'll just have Doug be the cranky voice. He's also laughs at himself. That should do a lot to make him less unlikable. And it's okay if he's a little unlikable. He's got kind of an ugly mouth, that Doug. I tried to fix it, but I can't. And I just suddenly realized, so he's just kind of I don't know. But I'm super happy with Mace. In fact, I'm super happy with all of them. Quick question, by the way. On the various things I've been posting on Stratosphere Studio, especially on the interview that I posted, it got seen by 300 people. I think it's a start for a little channel. A number of people said it's okay. So it looks good, but you got to get your mannerisms out of this, Bill. And I'm not arguing about this. I'm not at all. I just don't know where they are. It's hard for me to tell. Mace can be me. That I don't have to invent a new character for him. And I suppose there's a lot of me in Doug as well. But I thought that Jeff and Steve were really pretty different. If anybody saw any of me and Jeff or Steve, then I've got some trouble. I really did that hard. When I got to Doug, I just thought, I got to roll with him a little bit. But Mace, I just love him. I just love him. And in that interview, he's got that kind of little roll in his eyes at the camera, and he's like the father figure I'm really looking for this. I just think he's fantastic. Fantastic. So this is all it was going to be in the beginning, Roadrunner. That's where it was, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. I am interested. I think I might wait one more week or two, and then I will talk to you guys about this. But I think what I'd like to do is do a little mini crowdsource thing, little mini crowdfunding thing for, I don't know, 25, 30 grand. That's not a trivial amount of money, but it's enough to get it done. As a, sort of as a pilot program for the colonies. And that would be about something very specific. It wouldn't be just like, hey, give me some money for me to work on this. That would be to produce a documentary called The True Story of Project Horizon. And in that case, what I would do is I do have an actual script for that. It's not completely written, but it's pretty well blocked out. It would be basically be telling the story of all the stuff I've just been talking about. And it would give us a chance. This is why I really would like to hear back from Hayes Gray, I think, Animations, because this stuff is so good. I just don't want to have to reproduce it. I can find somebody to do it, but I'd rather not. And we'll find a lot of people saying don't use Kickstarter or GoFundMe. We'll find some place that's reliable, because I'm not planning on catching people who are randomly at the GoFundMe place. I'm just looking for a mechanism. And then, so basically, what this would be would be a historical telling of it from the beginning in 1959 up until the present day, and there would be a purpose for this, and the purpose would be that somewhere in this documentary, the beginning, the end, or I don't know where. I don't know exactly how to put it either, but something along the lines of, this is a work of historical fiction. However, all the names you hear are real people, and all of the hardware you see was at the very least designed, and in many cases actually flew. This is what we could have done if we hadn't shot our own feet off. On with the show. And I think that would be a blast. And I've got that script actually pretty well hammered out. I don't know. I think it'd be just really, really fun to do. And plus, when you do that, it's kind of like, here's your introduction, and now you can just do the installments on it. I personally think it would be considerably easier to do than, in fact, considerably easier to do than Diaz for Dungeon, because a lot of this stuff would be narration, be historical footage. Again, this Hayes Gray art thing, I hope I hear back from him. I hope I can license some of these things or whatever. Because they really look good, and I would do the whole thing would be animated. All of the characters. So you've got I'd have to build a metahuman Neil Armstrong and all the rest of it, but you get the idea. Cool. And what about the rest of the question? It says wrote the question. So do you have anything close to an entire segment, episode, pilot written? If so, would you share it with us? Oh, would I share it with you? Yes, I will. If that's the other part of the question you're talking about. All of the stuff I'm working on now would then be stuff that we put up there on the crowdfunding thing to show that it could be done. And then I would put the script up. I'd copyright it first, and then I would just put it up there, and everybody be able to get to read it. It's not super long, I figure maybe 10, 12 minutes, something like that, maybe. There's just some really cool stuff in there, and use as much, not jargon, because jargon has done too much plot carrying these days. It started with Star Trek: The Next Generation, so it's not jargon. It's just because the turbo encabulator is jargon, but use as many real things as you possibly can, and just sort of go at it that way. So I just think it'd be fun. So yes, I do have plans to do this, and then once this thing is out there, it establishes the premise. It's essentially the pilot episode. Then you can do 3-minute segments on YouTube or whatever for whatever you want to cover. I seriously thought about transcribing the idea of "don't be an idiot" to make it the astronauts being the guys saying "don't be an idiot about this, don't be an idiot about that." It seems like that might work well. Actually, just kind of split them up 4 ways. Don't be an idiot about airplanes, or don't be an idiot about, the moon landing. But we went from rag and wood wings to landing on the moon in 60 years. There's not a species in the world, in the universe, that can do that. Nobody can do that. That's what we do because we're. There you go. So boom. Yeah, jargon on Next Generation became more like magic nonsense. It sure did. Jeremy sent me a little cartoon about something we talked about back in the day, about the idea that the Star Trek transporter kills you. Every time you step into it, you're just disintegrated, you die. And then you get reassembled. So basically the question is, a computational fluid dynamics algorithm recalibrates the hyperdimensional molecular construction matrix to allow instantaneous flow capacitance into the protoplasmic assembly via Van der Waals protocols. There's just nothing to it. See how easy it is? So there you go. Moving on. Jazer McFarland. Jazer is maybe the coolest first name I've ever heard. Is everyone getting intermittent buffering? Looks like we're having problems on YouTube again. And I just can't stand that, but there's not much I can do about it. Most everybody watches the show recorded, so sorry about that. Here we go. Jason McFarland. I enjoying your progress with Mason and the gang so much I thought it would be a gem to include an Easter egg in the colonies. For example, the young man who ends up winning the heart of the teenage girl in the Pioneer family could have the last name Mattingly. Jazer, you are as cool as your name, dude. That's a fantastic idea. A book could be on the bedside of a character that says D is for dungeon. I'm loving it. This would be such a fun way to keep your efforts alive, and fans would jump out of their seat when they realize the connection and be combing over every scene for more clues to things that we've all enjoyed and experienced together. There's a gigantic circular area. It's like a rec room. And they can go jogging in there, and they can do all those other things in there. And I thought maybe that would be kind of their rec area. And I thought maybe they'll just call that the Stratosphere Lounge. Have the logo on the door. We're just going to the Stratosphere Lounge, and we look up there, and there's the Earth, because the Earth never sets on the moon. Wobbles a little bit because of the libation of the moon, but basically, you just kind of, there it is. So, yeah, that's the Stratosphere Lounge where they sit indoors and drink their hams. I'll just show you where that base is real fast here. So if you look on the animation here, we're not going into this crater. Here it comes. Here it comes. Okay, so the double-decker building with the white front is the command center. The one to the right is a secondary control room. It's the back round one at about 2 o'clock on the relative to the front thing, between the front thing and the air conditioning room. You can see it's completely clear all around and stuff. By the way, something interesting about this animation, as you get closer, the lights come on, which actually looks kind of cool. The problem is I didn't want it to do that, and I didn't know how to stop it. It's got to do with the fact that those lights are coming from the texture. The textures have self-illuming aspects into them, and it's got something. I thought it had something to do with the level of detail or the proximity to the thing, because as you get closer, more and more of them light up. I've tried to figure out a way to have them lit as you come. The animation's actually 60. I started rendering at 60, especially for the animation for the faces, because there's a big difference between 60 frames a second and 30 when it comes to subtleties. I'm not going to answer that question. I just don't feel like it. It's a question about whether or not we're going to have kids. We're not going to have kids. So I've just, that's a little more personal. I really need to get into right now. Not that I haven't been more than happy to talk about personal things myself, but this is not just my. This is a two-party discussion, and so since the other party's not here, I think I'll just step away from that one. Not that there's anything to step away from; it just seems unseemly. Uh, Jason McFarlane again. All right. That's the same question. I guess I skipped the Marusha question. And I skipped it again. Here's Michael Baker. We'll do him, and then we'll go back and pick up the ones we missed. And I think then we will go back and call it a night. So now we're getting delays on YouTube and delays on Twitch. I don't know. We've got excellent internet here. It's really fast, and it never seems to be on my end. I don't know what's doing it. Robert Mitchelson says he might be going off better with a stylized look. I'm just not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. I'm just not interested. And I don't mean to sound as harsh as it came off. I just not interested. Unreal Engine was when it started to look realistic enough to be making me happy. It's not photorealistic. It's not like, hey, look, oh, I couldn't tell that was an animated character, but it's close enough for me to be happy with it. And the nice news is it gets better every year. So, in fact, it's gotten better significantly better since MetaHumans came out 2 years ago. So we're on 2.0 MetaHumans now. And considering it's an iPhone, one guy with an iPhone, it's pretty impressive. I think an amen. Yes and no. Michael, number one, the fourth turning is something we covered on the Stress Free Launch, a little more like a political question. And we generally try to state entertainment questions here. And the bottom line is I have not gotten much further on the book, so I have some confusion about that myself, a lot of confusion. Which generation is talking? Because he's kind of a little bit, it's not like he's vague so much as it's obtuse about how all these things work. So I need to read more about it, and then we'll come back and revisit it. But you're going to be hearing more about the fourth turning from me because I think there's really something to this. All right, so back to the top. Let's see what we got here. We'll do the second pass. Hey, look, it's Eric Blake again. Standard Vulcan or Vector. Of course, doing the math, he'd have been alive to endorse Reagan in 1980, as he had way back for Ike and Goldwater. Trivia note, the Gipper actually took part in the broadcast for the Disneyland grand opening. I did not know that, but that's pleasing to know. What say you? I don't know that Voyage revival, starting with Little Mermaid animation series, all the new animated classics that they did that were, certainly up there with the originals like Snow White and Pinocchio and all the rest. So Walt would have had to have another 50, 60 years he would have needed in order to have had an effect on what we're seeing today. The destruction of the Disney brand has been actually almost like scientifically interesting to me. How you could invert a brand like that. Well, it's the same as Bud Light, I mean, Bud Light's an all-American beer. They're having fun with it was just a fun beer. And everybody knows it's just swill, but that's okay. It's swill, that's what Saturday's for. And I noticed that, and they noticed too, that the left is like a parasite wasp. It cannot reproduce unless there's a host organism for its horrible eggs to grow in. So they infect Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, Terminator, Ghostbusters, squirming nastiness, and embedded it inside of Star Wars, let's say, and people eat the Star Wars and they think that this little larvae is going to grow inside them and turn them into progressives. It didn't work that way. Everybody just kind of vomited it back out again and said, I'm not eating any more Star Wars anymore. It made me sick. So Disney was kind of the jewel in the crown from a purely propaganda point of view, because Disney was the most wholesome company in America. It had the most wholesome family brand. People didn't go to Disney movies because they considered that they were too boring, too wholesome. And then they came in and they did what they did. So that's the kind of the thing about Walt. That's got to go. So yeah, this is what happens when One half of the country is out to destroy everything, and the other half of the country is asleep at the wheel. It's hard for me to blame. I mean, I do blame them, obviously, but evil people do evil things, and you shouldn't be shocked when they do evil things. And destroying Disney is just one of many, 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 and one of the more serious evil things that they've done. But it's not their job to protect Disney and wholesomeness and family and all these things. It's our job, and we kind of sat down on that one, I think. All right, moving on. We got to try and get the doubles here. Another question from Chris Taylor, which we will take. Are your men on the moon going to get to highlight any victories or improvements they see in current culture? Maybe stuff TikTok would promote if the USA PRC location settings got reversed? That's a great question. I'll get to the rest of it. It's a lot of the rest of it. Yes, they definitely have to be. There have to be certain things that they're like completely in favor of. Otherwise, they just look like, get off my lawn, you kids. I think, on some level, I am almost a little worried that Mace is getting almost like too balanced, too mature. But he is the leader up there. There is a good side to technology. There's I'd much rather watch an HD TV than a 70s color TV or a 60s color TV. It'd be the voice. We all see the green-haired, pierced lunatics, but there's millions and millions and millions of really smart kids out there who are doing smart things, and nobody's speaking for them. This is a super quick tease about this. I would like to talk to Bill Mooney, who played Will Robinson, because I was thinking about this. I know a lot of guys my age wanted to be Will Robinson and wanted to be friends with the robot, and I realized that I can't think of another example, with the exception of Johnny Quest, I suppose, of a role model for boys who were smart but not nerds. They were not nerds. I remember in the first season of Lost in Space, John Robinson's jetpacking around as he's wont to do, with his little streamer coming off of his helmet. I don't know if you remember that. I thought that was really spoiled the effect. But I think it was the episode with the giant furry cyclops, creature, a big rock boulder, shoot it from a low angle. I scared the hell out of me. It worked for me. And like John gets trapped in a cave or something, and frickin' Will goes out there with his laser pistols. His kid's 8 or something, 8 or 9, goes looking for his dad. His dad's trapped in this thing. He's climbing these hills. This giant thing, and he hits him with a laser, man. And it's like, that's the way to go, boys. That's the kind of guy I want to be. Calls his father sir, and gets a lot of responsibilities because he doesn't screw it up. It's a tremendous relationship, and the relationship, the story of Lost in Space is the meta of Lost in Space is the story of how, and I'd like to talk about this too, frankly. It's the story of how Jonathan Harris hijacked the show. And I thought these many decades that he had done it on his own, and that Irwin Allen had somehow, that Jonathan Harris had like pictures of Irwin Allen doing, unsavory things, blackmailed him. But it was much 60, I think Lost in Space was 65 to 67. And Batman was around 66. So when Batman came out, it was such an insane hit, off the charts, absolutely off the charts hit. And Batman is nothing but camp. And so the retelling that I heard was that Irwin Allen basically uncorked Dr. Smith on seasons 2 and 3 to play up the camp. But I don't know if that was a good idea. when I was watching the show, I didn't know anything about gay, and by the way, apparently Jonathan Harris wasn't gay, and Jonathan Harris apparently, I'm hearing this fourth person kind of vehemently denies that Smith was gay, but he had certain mannerisms that I would not associate with steely-eyed missilemen. All I remember about Dr. Smith when I was a kid was how much I hated him. I just hated him, and I hated him because he kept screwing everything up, and I just said, just leave him here. He sold you out 19 times in 3 years. He's just going to let you there to die so he can go home. He's just a horrible, horrible, horrible person, and just leave him. And then as I got considerably older, I look back on it and I realized I liked Jonathan Harris much better than I liked Dr. Smith. So I could see what he was doing there, but he just wasn't in the same show. And the sort of the meta of that 3-season thing of Lost in Space is players. Don West is a nobody, and Judy Robinson's a nobody, and Bill Mumy, Will Robinson had done a couple of Twilight Zone episodes that were great. But the first season is about John Robinson and the Robinson family. The first 5 or 6, 7 episodes of Lost in Space, Dr. Smith is just an evil agent. He is just evil and scary. And somewhere in there, he started putting this, just kind of turning up the camp. And by the time you get into the second season, it's just unbearable. And by the time you get to the third season, it's just, I thought Jonathan Harris was laughing at what Jonathan Harris was doing. So what ended up happening is, I guess they're just following the ratings. So Lost in Space became about the boy and the robot. And the people they hired as stars, namely John Robinson, Maureen Robinson, and Penny Robinson, they're just not even seen. They're just window dressing. And they didn't like it. And I remember just watching this thing, just going like, just push him in the hole, Will. Just let him sleep when the giant crush kill. Just cheese it and leave him there. But with all that said, Will Robinson was like every kid I know my age, every boy I knew my age wanted to be Will Robinson. Wanted to have the little silver Mylar suit, and we wanted to have a little laser pistol, and we wanted to build force fields. And anyway, the reason I brought all this up is because the relationship between Will and his dad stayed throughout the entire series, and it was a superb. Dad and Will are having a little man-to-man talk, and I thought, yeah, it's just great. But I chucked all that away for the pain, the pain, my delicate back, William. And hiding behind the boy. Gart William tells me my Alpha Echo 3.5 unit is failing. I'm getting that from people in YouTube. We're getting transition interruptions. So I'd like to request an EVA to repair the Alpha Echo 3.5 unit, have it fail on board, determine the cause of the failure. Sorry to keep you waiting, guys. X-Ray Delta 1, this is Mission Control. Roger, your plan to go EVA to repair the Alpha Echo 3. That guy, who was in 2001 Space Odyssey, for those of you not up on your Kubrick, very similar to what happened with R. Lee Ermey in much later in Full Metal Jacket. That movie was made in England, and they had, at the time, very powerful unions. They had that through most of the 70s as well. Very powerful unions. I actually had a chance to go work on Space 1999. I really did. They did the premiere of the show, and the U.S. premiere was in the Miami Planetarium, and I was like 14, 15. I really, really wanted to work on it, and they actually looked into it for me. But you just couldn't get an American to work I was obviously thinking I was going to be on camera. I'd just be grabbing coffee for people. But so they originally had a guy on 2001 Space Odyssey who was a British actor who was doing the voice and just couldn't get it. And Kubrick insisted on getting an actual American. For example, the Lunar Crew would sing. If you mentioned them bringing or making instruments, I missed it. And you personally marveled at the Wellerman Online unplanned singing collaboration. I did and I do. Spontaneous global celebration of music like that would have been impossible before the internet. Absolutely. Similarly, you mentioned Jeff liking to build model steam engines. Previously, there might have been one person in the whole country or military base interested in such a thing. Hobby clubs of a small handful might be possible in large cities, but otherwise, he would have been waiting all month to read the letters to the next issue of Home Machinist. Is that true in the 60s as well, I guess? They were a lot more popular then than they are now. I did some looking at this, by the way, Chris. They're still made, and there's one company that makes them, and I think it's a company that's been there forever. They're just really cool little things. They have all different kinds of models of them and stuff. And by the way, when some of them, they've got like, I don't know, 6 pistons or something, and they put a little steam in that thing, and the thing just goes up to like, I don't know, 8,000-9,000 RPM. Because there's not much mass there, so pretty cool. By allowing hobbyists with obscure interests across the globe to have discussion boards, the internet has greatly accelerated innovation in and lowered the bar of entry to scale model, engine machining, instrument building, and countless other niche hobbies. Amen to that. And here we are. On his technical interests, free scientific paper preprint distribution sites like Cornell's arvix.org website have dropped the time to get, read, respond, and get feedback from fellow researchers from months to days. Yes, so information's traveling not only much more widely, but also much faster. And allowed individuals with scientific and engineering interests to follow and participate in developments without subscribing to multiple expensive journals or living near a major university library. Both big problems for Jeff. Yes. There seems to be lots of remnants of excellence and Americanism scattered around the world. Elite parasites the rent-seeking elite parasites. I like that turn of expression. The rent-seeking elite parasites. I'm seeing buffering problems now in my streaming software. That's not good. I'm just hoping it's recording. I think we'll have to call it after this because I've suddenly noticed it's just starting to back up. There seem to be lots of remnants of excellence and Americanism, particularly in places with another figure for a generation in the way that John Robinson was, or never considered James Kirk to be a father figure, but he was certainly a model for me, and yeah, this whole thing is about finding the good and keeping that hope alive. When I say it's always 1966 on the moon, it's not like, and everything else sucks. It's like, it's always 1966 on the moon, so anybody who wants to connect to 1966 can watch this program and not only get technical advice, but also, personal advice, like dating advice. Because I figure that made out like a bandit when he was in high school and college. He's a good-looking guy, quarterback, worked out perfect blend between athletics and academics. We don't have athletics anymore, and as long as we're using computer graphics, I'm sure I can teach athletics. Yeah, we don't need to use a motion capture suit for this. Let's just buy some stock pull-up animations. How many do you need? 600? Yeah, no problem. We'll just loop it. So there's that. I think I did. All right, I'm starting to get some intermittent. I don't know. It's getting the peanut butter's getting chunky. That's all I have to say. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I think an hour and 36. That's ridiculous. But I'm going to do it anyway because it's alarming and it's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to watch for you guys as well too. Anyway, so the progress continues slowly but surely. I need a haircut. And I think that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Studio, made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com. I think we'll talk a little bit more about this idea of the little crowdfunding adventure for the true story of Project Horizon, and raise a little bit of money and get some help so that I don't have to do all this by myself. Although I like doing, here's the thing. There are many, many, many times, as I'm sure this is true with all of us. How often have you thought, "My God, I wish I spent years and years in prison"? I think about this all the time. Wouldn't that be great? As long as you could, keep your computer and have some electricity. Because if I was in prison for 2 years, I'd get a lot done. Yeah, I'd get a lot done. I've learned how to do pretty much every aspect of this thing, including the lighting, the voices, the cameras, the editing the show possible. We're always thinking, never ever get over it. And on that cheerful note, thanks for. We'll see what new goodies we can have for you, percolating away in the chips and graphic cards of this brave new world. This new frontier. You heard it here first. See you next time.